Welcome to episode 84 of the XRM Toolcast. In this episode, Scott and I speak with Sid, Gundavarapu, and Jesse Parsons, both Microsoft employees who worked on the new Dataverse Power Apps ESLint NPM package. So if you want to make your code better, want it to be done automatically and to check it for you automatically, this is definitely something to check out and definitely an episode for you to watch. We did have some issues with some audio or some video actually coming through for Jesse, so we did blank a screen after a while to make sure that we actually caught his audio. So apologies for anything that comes through a little bit less than what we normally have, but otherwise sit back and relax and let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of the XRM Toolcast. With me, your host, Daryl, always raising the bar, and Scotty, no longer with the Queen Daryl. Scott, how's it going? You're not in England, but you've lived with the Queen your whole life, as have I, just not as Indeed. My Queen, I guess you could say. But yes, how is that different for you?
Very sad news. Yes, definitely. Yeah, really shocking as well. It's like you say, it's something that I've always known, and I've always had the Queen's speech, and obviously I get that the Queen is not everyone's Queen, and I think there's been a lot of certainly in Twitter and things, been a lot of negativity around there. But she's someone's mother and granny, and so it's sad news. But yeah, got to move on. And King, it's all going to be strange. New coins and new banknotes, I guess.
They actually do. They have to do all that stuff. I didn't even think.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. New stamps. It's like a big deal. Everything's got to be rebranded. It's like basically a company rebranding at a entire national level.
Yeah, so it's like the marketing department of Microsoft that's changed the name 3 or 4 times every so often.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously in Canada, she's the head of state as well. So she was head of the state. So now King Charles III is the head of the state. So at school, the kids are back at school now. So they put the flag at half mast, and it was a big thing. So yeah, it is. Yeah. It's got to move on. But it's very sad news. But it's now very quiet with the kids not being around. It's everyone being when the kids are back at school. And although, having said that, a cricket has managed to get into the house. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like it sounds like it's a mechanical device that's making very loud chirping noises, and it's been gradually getting closer and closer to my office. So it's down the hall. So if you start hearing some strange noise, it's managed to get into my office. breaking the silence. I doubt that'll
make an appearance, but if it does, that'll be great. My wife is she calls it a farting machine. It's a little remote thing that will make farting noises, and she plays it with teens and stuff. Like, who's that? What did that sound? And that kind of stuff. So,
practical jokes on you.
Yes, practical jokes. She likes that. So, just to get on to what this podcast is actually about, because it is kind of the serious heads of foreign estate or about farting machines and crickets. Hopefully it's a little more entertaining than that. But today we have 2 guests from Microsoft. First up is Jesse Parsons, a principal software engineering manager at Microsoft, currently specializing in enterprise security, including vulnerability detection and prevention, as well as product features for governance, data control, and transparency, as well as Sid, and I'm going to butcher the name probably, but we'll give it a shot, Gundavarapu. We'll call him Sid G for now. We can let him correct me. He's a product manager, helping build the best business application platform in the planet, and also just another guy. So, welcome, guys. We found some things or some exciting new stuff coming out for Dataverse and TypeScript, and I've been using TypeScript for, I guess, half a decade now. Crazy, and I always like to see it keep on coming out. And so we were really excited about this ESLint thing that we wanted to bring you guys and talk to you about. So. First off, because some of our listeners may not be developers and may not even know what ESLint is, can we give a quick little high level, what is ESLint and why does it help dev people? And then we'll dive into what you've actually released.
Yeah, ESLint is it's a very popular static analysis tool among web developers. It can be applied to JavaScript and TypeScript. So this basically, allows you to see, especially with VS Code integration, you can see common issues while you type. And so you can catch these, common issues that you might run into at runtime extremely early. So it's been an invaluable tool for across the web community. And, it works on the system of plugins. So, for React, for Vue, Angular, all types of libraries, there's been plugins developed that help those specific group of developers, be able to catch issues that are specific to that framework or whatever they're using. So it's a really, really great tool to help kind of close down on any bugs you might see later. And yeah, that's why we kind of decided to invest in this and build right along with that.
Yeah. So I'd even add on, like, it's so if you're not a developer, think of it as the squiggly lines in your Word and everything else. Oh, this may not be right. This is wrong. And when you get that right when you're typing it, sometimes it's annoying. We have OCD issues. Like, I got lines I got to get rid of. But at the same point in time, you're never going to understand that line of code better than when you just wrote it right then, hopefully. And so so that way it makes it much easier to catch those bugs, to find them, to fix them, and to just improve development overall. So so awesome. So that's at a basic level what this ESLint is. What have you guys released? What does it do, and how is it going to help empower everybody moving forward?
Right. So like other popular libraries have done with plugins on top of ESLint, we've developed a specific set of rules for Power Apps that can kind of help you catch issues specific to Power Apps and Dataverse. Again, right as you type in VS Code, you get nice red squiggles. For some of the rules, you even have autosave capabilities that will fix it for you. Really, really nice integration. And where these rules come from, essentially, when we released the Solution Checker feature, certain rules run on web resources on JavaScript and TypeScript, and those were just implemented using ESLint. So in the backend, we're just running ESLint on these web resources and on this code. So we thought, why not put these ESLint rules directly in the hands of pro-code developers and makers so that they can see issues much sooner? How Solution Checker typically works is you might develop a solution, you're exporting and importing, you're moving it between development environments and eventually to production, and you might not run Solution Checker until way down the line, think weeks or even months later. So the beauty of this is that in developers' IDEs, they can just see issues as they come in and be able to fix them right away. As you said, Daryl, they're never going to understand that line of code better than right when they wrote it. So that was the inspiration behind kind of shifting these upstream.
Okay, so this is straight from the Solution Checker. Cool.
Yeah, I love the fact that you can do it, like you say, Jesse, like early on. And the real challenge I always had with a Solution Checker, other than as the challenge you mentioned about the fact that it tends to get done down the line, is that the static analysis that was being done on the code was always being done on the minified transpiled JavaScript. So, it's like you write your TypeScript, it gets transpiled into JavaScript, it gets minified, it gets squelched and scrunched and smunched, and and then you get this Solution Checker that's running. And I mean, it's remarkable that it even manages to understand it in the first place. But obviously you get some sort of false positives and things like that. So I love the fact that it's actually looking at the real TypeScript source. And so did that make it easier to write the rules?
Yeah. So if we make assumptions about, how the code is minified and scrunched and bunched, like you said, that can definitely affect, how we're writing the rules themselves. So we are tackling a couple problems also around the differences between minified and unminified code, and making sure that these rules are, consistent, whether you're running it on bundled files way later, or if you're running it right on the source, kind of in that raw code. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been using it. I've added, the ESLint package into all of my projects, it works like any other ESLint, package does. You get the little squiggly lines. It's like, I think I see it more as like a grammar checker than the spell checker. It's like it's telling you that your grammar's wrong rather than actually something, the syntax is wrong.
Right. It's code that works, but it goes against best practices is kind of our
Yeah, make sure it makes sure you put the Oxford comma in there, rather than
debate.
Not only are we a tech show, we are an Oxford comma tech show. Okay, all right.
Really, it's just a nod to Jonas, really, because Jonas is the grammar police. Really, He's always the quick to point out if your grammar's wrong. But yeah, so I mean, the kind of rules that there are, they very closely match the solution checker rules. Is it like exactly like for like? Have you put all of the solution checker JavaScript rules into the ESLint package?
Yeah, essentially all of the solution checker rules that run on JavaScript on web resources are now available in this plugin. As you might know, we have rule sets that are kind of a collection of rules that solution checker can take. So those will eventually kind of correspond to different sets of rules in the ESLint plugin itself. I think you, Scott, opened a request, for recommended and required rule sets, which was great, and we definitely want to implement. So that's kind of how they might map from checker rule sets over to ESLint, bundles of rules there. But they each have kind of their own categories. Some detect performance issues, some detect deprecated APIs being used, accessibility issues. Eventually, we definitely want to put security issues in there to catch any anti-patterns that might open up attacks. Yeah, we have all kinds of things in there today, and kind of categorize them like that.
I love that it's now something that you have before the solution checker, and if it's I don't know if the solution checker, did it stop being a thing, or are they? I mean, something changed with it, right? So it's not used quite the same way as what it used to. But one of the things I had with the solution checker is I had C# code that was just bundled in with my other code that was only for testing purposes, and so I did a select star, all columns on there, and solution checker was really angry at me for having this wide open select star thing on it, and the customer sees it and they're like, hey, I thought you were more efficient in this stuff, and they didn't yell at me, but I could see them seeing it and complaining, and so I had to do kind of a weird hack in order to actually get it to not be to not yell at the in the solution checker. But with the TypeScripting rules, if there is something you're running that, hey, this isn't even in my Dataverse code set. Maybe it's a web resource or something else that I'm doing that's in the project but not necessarily a part of it. I could ignore that rule if I need to. If I know what I'm doing, if I know, yes, this is a warning, but yes, this is the one time that this does actually make sense for me to do this sort of thing. So I having the nice guardrails up are great, but then also being able to say, hey, this one time we're going to change it is or not abide by that rule set is really, really powerful for devs to have, I think. So.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's very tempting as soon as an ESLint rule fires, it's very easy just to there is that shortcut in VS Code to say, ignore this line. It's control dot down press return. I've got muscle memory, which is quite worrying.
We even have a helpful shortcut to disable this line.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
One of the challenges with that would be that in the dev environment you can ignore it, but when you run this solution again, solution checker is going to catch them again and then bug you there.
So is that the plan then, Sid, to always have that kind of guard, that final guard through the solution checker, even if you do ignore those ESLint? So is it always going to be this kind of double set of checks that you have to run through?
So before I answer that, let me take a step back. So what we did with this ESLint rules is basically internally we're calling it as left shift, right? So taking the asset we have and then bringing it a little earlier in the game for developers to catch issues sooner does not mean that you should stop doing what you were doing before. So the intention is you have one additional thing you can do to catch and fix issues sooner. One thing you're going to see is this pattern of left shift, right? So as Daryl already caught, so we used to do a few other things with Solution Checker. In early March, we stopped doing the plugin validation. So any C# code in the plugin is not validated in Solution Checker anymore, right? And the strategy for that one is to also move those into the dev environment, into the plugin registration time. So that way the issues are caught sooner. And then when that new piece of code is mature again, it will come back to Solution Checker in the future. Now, that's one aspect of the validations or guardrail. The other way we are thinking is it's actually twofold. So one, adding more rules. So we have some rules today which are good. If you look at the rules, they're also, some of them are quite old. So like 2011 endpoint, at some point, people will stop using that and that rule will become irrelevant. So we're going to keep on adding more rules and also take a look at the existing ones. So that's one approach on how we want to expand. The other one is basically getting all these assets of Solution Checker and then scatter across the cloud. Right? So like how we brought it into into the Visual Studio environment, it's going to show up. Don't quote me then, but it will show up in more places. And quick plug there. So if, please catch up on the Ignite announcements next month. So you're going to see how we are thinking on one aspect of how Solution Checker's assets can be used elsewhere in the product. Okay, we can talk more the next month when when we can talk more freely on what that new hidden thing is.
That sounds very exciting and tantalizing. It's like, yeah.
It's coming out. We won't tell you what it is, but check it out at Ignite. And Scott, you're going to be
we do not want to pre-announce anything before you can.
No.
I might be doing a session at Ignite, but the next one I'm prepping for at the moment is Power Platform Conference, which is in Orlando in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah. So, but these big announcements tend to come out at Ignite. So yeah, it's going to be really, really cool to see what the plans are. But it's interesting you say about some of the rules being quite old now. What I like about the ESLint rules is that you can very quickly go in and you can look at the source because it's all there, and actually they're written really nicely because they've got unit tests against them that say, okay, this is an example of code that passes. This is an example of code that fails. So you can kind of peek into the, those rules. But obviously some of them are more tailored for writing JavaScript for kind of forms, like form events. And these days, there's obviously the PCF, the Power Apps Component Framework side of writing TypeScript. So at the moment, the actual rules seem to be, the majority of them are really kind of more about writing form scripts. Is that, what's the, at the moment, what would you say is your main target audience for these Solution Checker, these ESLint rules?
Yeah, so I would say it is more because they've been developed and not touched so much over the past couple of years. They have kind of been tailored more towards, classic web resources, maybe ribbon commands, ribbon rules, form events, things like that. And as our audience of custom control and PCF developers kind of grows, we're definitely hearing a lot of really good ideas, both from the field and internal, on how we can write rules that kind of target controls themselves. And we will need to think about how ESLint behaves in that form, right? Because it's all just JavaScript code, it's all TypeScript code. You don't really know the context of where something's running until you actually put it into a solution, right? So thinking about how Checker can kind of map where it's being used to what rules to run, and that will kind of also help form our rule sets, right? Like we might have a rule set that says this will run on controls, this should run on form event, this should run on ribbons. But yeah, it's a great point that I think we have some evolution that we want to do on those to target what people are actually building today.
Yeah, that sounds good because it's like recommended.
I think you answered it. So basically, we did not add more rules to keep it current, but with the new focus on and how we want to leverage the existing assets in a better way, the primary focus is also to add more rules. And Jesse and I are part of the security team. It's a new team which got formed, so you're going to see more security-focused rules, both from the security code point of view, like from ESLint point of view, but also more from the solution checker point of view, which is not necessarily code, but also the environment, the configuration.
Okay, so you're saying security for for the JavaScript, what you're doing in the JavaScript, the things you shouldn't be doing security-wise, or like what's dive into what you mean by that?
Yeah, one example of actually another plugin that's built on top of ESLint. So Microsoft does release, our own SDL JavaScript rules that are an ESLint plugin, and that has some great examples of like what might inspire us to build around Power Apps. So there's kind of general things you shouldn't do in JavaScript to avoid, cross-site scripting attacks. Think about things like not sanitizing inputs, things that can kind of be caught by a static checker. So those are the types of things we want to build upon, because JavaScript's a very dynamic and powerful language, as we all know, and so there's a lot of things that you can easily miss, when you're writing up. A lot of people use frameworks to help, alleviate some of these security concerns today, but people, we can see all kinds of things in solutions, so we absolutely want to keep people safe without having to be security experts.
Security is always the worst part of any project, it feels like. It's like, I'm not sure what I'm doing right. Yeah. I don't want to work.
It should be granted. You should take it for granted.
That's why when you said security stuff, I'm like, wait, what are we doing in the browser for like forms and stuff that I need to be worried about security-wise? I'm like, I'm not like handling passwords. I'm not like creating tokens to do just form manipulation. Like, what do I need? Okay. I'm not like doing SQL injection stuff that I need to be worried about. But okay, all right, cool. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, even like Sid was alluding to, not outside of code itself, but like how you configure the environment. So like, just as a plug for something we announced yesterday, we allowed Evans to turn on content security policy. So that's something that could be like a simple rule to say, hey, you don't have content security policy configured, or maybe you don't have it configured, as safe as you could. So even getting Checker to look at things like that, that's kind of outside of the ESLint scope, but that's kind of what we're thinking in terms of like security rules that check the environment.
Yeah, or maybe as part of ESLint, so little more involved than what we have today, right? So as long as we can get the context of which environment code is going to go into, more abstract terms. Right? So we can still go back and look at, let's say, today we don't do it for the content security policy, but one of the things that we can do is you can provide an allowed list of domains where your scripts can come from. And if your code is actually referring to, let's say, a library which is not part of this allowed list, right? So in that case, ESLint and Solution Checker can catch them, alert the developer that, okay, this is something that it's going to get blocked because of the setting. So you may want to consider either adding it to the allowed list or maybe finding a different library or putting a different library in a different list.
So not just saying, hey, don't do this, but hey, do this instead. Like rather than a don't, like, hey, push them towards something better. That's always great.
Yeah, the ESLint auto fix feature is literally my favorite thing in the world, because it's like just I always set up a little node command in my packages.json which is called lint fix. So I just run it, node run lint fix, and it just goes through and just fixes everything that ESLint can automatically fix, and you just trust it. Yeah, I mean, maybe you review the change set, right? But on the whole, I mean, most of it's down to like converting. If you've got something that's defined as a let, so you convert it to a constant, or or adding in missing things to a React closure or something, things like that. But is that something that's on your roadmap for kind of providing much more of that? Because on the moment, I think there's only a couple of them. Is it that have an auto fix on them?
Yeah, and I'll add that has saved me so much time as an engineer, like just being able to fix very common problems that can lead to bugs later, just saving tons of time. So yeah, a few of them have autofix today. Definitely the thing with autofix is we want to be 99, 100% confident that the code is exactly the same before and after, before we start automatically modifying folks' code. So yeah, we need to take a closer look, and we have some ideas for some that could be more auto-fixable. Some of them also have the suggest capability. So ESLint and VS Code has nice integration for this, but it will suggest a fix that you can evaluate yourself and apply So it won't automatically change it if we're not 100%.
Yeah.
Let's say we're 80, 85% confident, but we ask people to check. That's where the suggestions come in. So quite a few rules do have that. All about making it easier for the end developer for sure.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. Ultimately that's what it's about, isn't it? It's like you say, Jesse, like saving time, making the more productive, less bugs, so that we can just build software quicker and more accurately, and less issues that are going to crop up later. I think, one of the things that I find people get a little bit scared of with ESLint is that they may have not started their project with ESLint. So they may already have a lot of code that they've written. And there's a fear factor. It's like, I don't really want to know. I don't want to turn it on ESLint because I don't want to know about all these things. It's going to suddenly, and then of course you do. And then it's overwhelming where it says, 10,532 issues found, and you're like, no, turn it off again. I don't want to see it. Oh, they're false positives, definitely. What would be your advice in terms of moving from where people are today, if maybe they haven't been using ESLint, towards more of a time of to a place where they have got ESLint and they've got these solution checker rules enabled?
Yeah, we do have some personal experience with that, with like very large code bases. We try to turn on rules at a time, and literally 10, 20,000 errors pop up. A lot of that is the autofix case, but it's scary, and we want to go back when that happens. ESLint configuration has some pretty nice capability, and you can also write your own way of doing it, where you can just run it on folders at a time, certain projects at a time. So we definitely recommend like an incremental approach. Let's say you have a bunch of synchronous network request issues, which is one of the popular ESLint checker rules. Maybe you just turn it on folder by folder at a time, test things slowly, gradually roll it out and test. And hopefully that can make you confident that you're not having to break your entire code base at once. Because some of these, the non-auto-fixable ones, like some of them can take quite a while to fix, to be honest. So you definitely don't want to block everything on turning the rule on your entire repo, as with any ESLint rule. So that's kind of what we did internally, just that incremental rollout.
Yeah, I think it's better for people to, as a recommendation, to enable it, to see how good or bad their situation is, and then they don't have to fix all at the same time. So they can put them in their plans and then try either file by file or rule by rule. They can tackle the problem, but unless they know what the problem is, it's hard for them to at some point get into that.
And when they're done, they can sleep better at night.
Yeah, Checker today accepts kind of like an override and kind of like files to exclude parameter. That's like a publicly supported capability. I think people will probably do that with Checker too, where they exclude certain portions until they totally get to green. Just, we just want to make it easier for people to try stuff without having to be behind a huge wall of effort.
Yeah. I did notice that Phil Cole, one of our listeners, Scott, I think we're up to 14 now, did mention the use of the max the max warning flag for this, so you can limit the number of warnings you have in a file. So if you happen to have some monstrosity of some file that's 10,000 lines long, you can say, just give me 10 errors out of it, and even tackle the file bit by bit if you have to. So it kind
of feels like that's the sort of like when someone says, "Do you want the good news or the bad news?" I'll just have the good news, please. It's like, yeah.
But incidentally, Phil was one of the person who also helped us test this before. So Scott helped us. Phil also helped us before we actually shipped ESLint, so it validated a few things. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, way to go, Scott. What else are you working on that I don't know about? You did like the whole ribbon workbench stuff, like redo the commanding, and now you're doing this. What? I thought we knew each other, Scott. Come on.
Oh, Daryl, I'd never keep secrets from you. No, never. We have this special relationship.
That's super NDA.
Super NDA.
You cannot agree on calls.
We also had, speaking of listeners, we had another listener that's he's not necessarily even in the Dataverse namespace. Tony Brooks commented and called us a super geeky, in a good way, of course, a developer podcast.
In a good way, yes.
Yeah, in a good way.
We can go with that. I think super geeky in a good way. Let's, can we have that as a strap line maybe? I don't.
Sounds like a nice T-shirt. Super geeky.
Yeah. Hey, so thanks Tony for the shout out. That was really great. It's nice to have a bit of attention, in social media. So 15, 16 maybe. I don't know.
16.
I'm starting to lose count. This is getting concerning. How many?
You can't do it in Roman numerals anymore.
Yeah, well. Yeah. Well, no. So yeah, it's great. I mean, it does seem to me that the pro dev space, certainly in the JavaScript and TypeScript world, is getting a lot more attention these days. In the past, it's been very much focused around the C#, the plugins, that kind of side of things. But and the JavaScript and TypeScript development has somewhat not been ignored, but it's been more like, okay, well, here's the SDK, you do what you like. I mean, is that the case? Is there more investment in the TypeScript, JavaScript side of the house going forwards? Is that something we're going to see more areas around things like VS Code, the VS Code extensions and things like that?
So on the other side, so Jesse and I, we are partial. We focus on the web API part. So our focus is there, but we have good number of team members, not directly Jesse and I's team, but we have the CLI toolkit. There's a team behind that, so that builds more plugins. And there is this plugin team that focuses only on the pro code, like C# code. They're also building things. So we do not want to talk on behalf of them, but certainly it's not just one versus the other. Our focus is mostly on the ESLint front-end part with JavaScript and TypeScript. So you will see more of this coming from us, but then the other teams also working in parallel.
Okay. Now, it's not quite Christmas, but I'm going to put in a Christmas request anyway here. I would love to have a TypeScript definitely typed a definitions for all of the interface from Microsoft, an officially released one. Scott and I are technically one of the, and Phil Cole actually too, are some of the admins of the open source definitely typed ones. But if that was something that was like official and that everybody in the community could get behind, that's great. It would be it's always a great thing to have. So I'm sure you've got plenty of other priorities. It may be in there somewhere, but that's my little 2023, 2022 Christmas wish.
Yes.
You're not the first. Yeah. Yes. It's a great request. Always good to have something coming from the source, right?
Yeah, it's always good to have something come from the source, because there's a couple different open source tooling that people use that have their own type definitions, and they're not exactly compatible. You can tweak a little bit here and there and get them to work. But ideally there would be one coming down from on high that we can all use.
Because there's it's already there. There's partial type support in the PCF Power Apps component framework library. So there's a bit of it, that's officially there. So we just need to expand it out. So that would.
Why can't you just be
awesome.
happy with what you have, Scott?
Yeah, come on. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Well, you started it, Daryl. I mean, so I'm not allowed to second it, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting because, when you start to use typing, because when you use the definitely typed XRM types for things like the deprecated APIs, you get the strike throughs. So, as soon as you if you open up some code that uses that, you can immediately see. So that's another way of, seeing that your code is not using recommended best practices. If it's suddenly got a load of strike throughs with all your API definitions. So
we definitely want to take advantage of the power of TypeScript, right? Like it's even more powerful than ESLint in a way, because it can actually, compare the objects and structures against each other rather than just kind of reading a syntax tree. So yeah, we'd love to kind of help out there, and it's definitely on our list, I would say.
So, if there's any of our listeners, there's 16, 17, 16, it's gone up. So if anyone's not using TypeScript and they're using JavaScript, Jesse or Sid, have you got any kind of recommendations of how you might, kind of make that jump to go from opening up maybe a web resource, just putting in some JavaScript, and then saving it and then trying to get it working in your forms, to more of a kind of a mature TypeScript with ESLint? What would be your recommended way forwards from where people are in that case?
Yeah, I'll kind of refer back to the incremental approach that we've also taken internally, because we were also, a whole JavaScript app. And then once TypeScript started gathering more steam, we were like, oh shoot, this whole effort, we have to get this entire thing under TypeScript. But just doing it and breaking it up kind of piece by piece, and, that might create some kind of dependencies that might be difficult in the meantime. But just breaking it up and doing it incrementally and get something working at a time has been pretty successful. Just like the ESLint rule additions, pretty similar approach there.
Cool.
But yeah,
so what else?
We were definitely very happy with it once it was done.
I also have a free course that you can take, by the way. Just it's free on which takes you all the way through from starting writing TypeScript and enabling ESLint and doing unity tests and deploying your web resources and Webpack and all those kind of things. So that's another option. There you go.
Just slide that in right there. Very, very smooth, Scott. Impressive. It's impressive. So obviously NDA is a thing, and we don't want to have to edit stuff for NDA, but is there anything else that you guys are working on, or things from the community that you want suggestions on, or insight into that we could hear about or give feedback on?
Yeah, certainly. So number one, the rules themselves, right? So please, all kind of feedback is welcome. But we have that forum thread where you can, Scott and Phil both had some suggestions. But please go ahead and add more suggestions if you have ideas for more rules. Right? So please do share that. Or if you feel there is this entire untapped dev aspect that we are not even looking at, that's something that we want to hear as well. And certainly, like the recommendations, of course, like TypeScript versus JavaScript, these are the kind of things we can get influenced. We don't necessarily have to always be the ones who are providing recommendations. We can hear the recommendations as well. So please do share those as well. Jesse, you want to add anything else?
No, yeah, I think putting it in the public forum allows people to kind of maybe get some inspiration from each other, and we have the nice upvote count there, and that kind of helps us prioritize as well. So great place to visit right off the blog post.
Yeah, I love that idea though, Sid, about asking folks to share suggestions for rules. I mean, that's awesome, because if everyone can start to say, hey, well, I find this problem all the time, and I want to make sure that I don't make the same mistake, or people in my team, or people that are extending this code don't make the same mistake. That would be great. So yeah, if anyone has any suggestions, then go to the blog post, which we'll put a link in for the notes for the podcast, and then just add on comment on it. Is that the best place to add suggestions like that, Sid?
Yeah, I think we should, unless it bloats up so huge that we cannot scale with the forum thread. I think that's a good place to start. That's a good problem to have if you have more suggestions than the forum thread can handle. Then we'll figure out what's the right, different, better approach for that.
Yeah.
Certainly,
right now you got 3, so you're not really breaking the.
Exactly. That should work.
Daryl always brings us down to earth.
Just make sure we're all humble.
Yes.
So anything else that we need to touch on? Anything else that you feel like we haven't dived into that we need to before we say our goodbyes and move on the rest of our day?
I've got nothing. Just give it a try.
Give it a try.
Please give it a try. Please give us feedback. And yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, totally. Oh, yes. And so my first suggestion is that we create a Jonas rule that ensures if anybody types in XRM Toolbox, it's capitalized correctly.
Yes, correct.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
We could have lots of fun with that. Maybe we could just create a whole ESLint package. Yeah. Just for that.
So those are the fun ideas I think of when I'm trying to do demos and stuff. I rather than doing something that's like like a realistic business case, I'd much rather it be something funny or interesting or silly, because everyone's seen. Oh, okay, I send somebody an email, yay! Or I go through and write a plugin that makes every single user in the system's name change to Homer Simpson, but only for my boss. Like something like that. That would be that's kind of a funny thing to do. I enjoy. Maybe that's my personality. Maybe I need help. I don't know.
Add more Easter eggs into the rules.
Yeah, Easter eggs.
You so do. You really do. I mean, just across the board, there needs to be more Easter eggs. I mean, yeah, that would be my Easter request. Can we have more Easter eggs in the product, please? So that you might like Excel used to have like a flight simulator in it, didn't it? Remember, you used to go down to a certain cell and type a certain thing in that cell, and you'd get. And then did it have like a version of like Doom or something in another product? Was it Access or Word or something? Yeah, we need things like that.
Make business applications fun.
Yeah. Well, I've got one thing to share that if people are not doing already, which was a thing that really has significantly changed my my coding experience, which is adding a spell checker into VS Code. I mean, I'm really not the best spell checker. So I'm not the best speller in the world. But yeah, it's amazing actually how it can actually really affect your code, because when you're writing, because it not only checks things like your comments, but it also checks your variable names and things like that. So, and you can configure it, there's a lot of various different extensions, but the one I use, you can configure it to sort of look at camel case or Pascal case and things like that to do the spell checking. So yeah, highly recommend you adding in a spell checker.
Yeah. One of the big motivations for us adding all this lint rules and things like that is like, it takes reviewers time and energy to look through, and no one wants to look for spelling mistakes. No one wants to look for common patterns that happen over. So it not only helps the developer, it helps the reviewers not have to look for those common problems and, squint and find little typos here and there. So yeah, it pays dividends.
Definitely.
And hopefully we don't ever run into a situation where we have false positives like Ray Sharper when you're writing a plugin. I have a plugin base class that implements iPlugin. But I also do it at my end class, and it says, "Hey, you shouldn't need to do this because it already implements it." And yeah, that's correct, except that whoever wrote the plugin late bound like parser or whatever on CRM looked at the type of the plugin itself to see if the type implements iPlugin, not to see if the type, the whole type, the inheritance structure, any of those types implement iPlugin. So it breaks if you don't explicitly implement iPlugin at the top level plugin if you have a generic plugin. And which I do. And so, it took me forever to figure out what is going on. Why is this breaking?
Right.
Then,
Yeah. I'm glad
right.
someone to get someone else forever.
Yeah.
It probably took me a lot longer than you, Daryl, but I was just like, what is going, why is this not working?
Yes. So that's the one with Sharper thing. I'm like, dude, I want to turn it off globally, but so hopefully we don't run any of those. But I think we'll be much safer than we would with that. So anyway, Sid, Jesse, thanks so much for joining us and for releasing this stuff out to the community. It's something that I'm sure we will pay dividends for years going forward as people continue to realize, oh yeah, this isn't right, or oh, this is different. I'm guessing maybe we need to have versioning may be kind of interesting, because if I'm on like a on-premise version, I may need to have a different may want a different set of rules and another one. But that'll be very helpful, I think. So, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. And Sid and Jesse, how do people, we got the post, we'll put that in the links. Is there any other way that people can reach out to you if they have any other future questions or future suggestions that may not be directly related to the ESLint package?
Yeah, I think LinkedIn works better for me. So,
okay. Right.
Twitter, I'm semi-active on Twitter. I just read. Most of the times I don't post much. LinkedIn, I'm very active.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, what Sid said for me. I'm a Twitter lurker, I would say. So reach out to me on LinkedIn, and direct inbox is open.
All right, thank you. And Scott, that's how our listeners can get hold of our guests. How can they get hold of us?
Was that a question to me, Daryl, by any chance?
I said Scott. I did. I said Scott. I said Scott. Did I say Scott? I said Scott.
Well, yes. I can certainly share that. Yeah, so please do email us, and you can get hold of us at cast@xrmtoolbox.com, or you can get us on Twitter and LinkedIn at XRM Toolcast. Follow us, please. Check out our YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, you can also, if you want to, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel and see what happens and the facial expressions that we make and the grimacing that we do. We'd love to hear from you. And Sid and Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you ever so much for sharing your thoughts and wisdom with us. And please continue with much of the same. It's really exciting to see all the investments that are happening in this area.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Don.
And hopefully we'll have an in-person summit someday. We can actually go out and say hi to you guys in person. So, yes, looking forward to that someday. If it ever happens, who knows? But anyway, good talking to you guys. We'll let you go. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, then. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This has been the XRM Toolcast with Daryl Labar and Scott Durrell. Produced by Lynn Zawin. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send them to cast@xrmtoolbox.com, tweet @XRMToolcast, or hit us up on our LinkedIn XRM Toolcast page.